One thing that stood out was the fact that we wanted this idea that the skybox, the starfield, the rotating sun, and then the sun hitting the interiors, we wanted them all to tie together so that it felt like one contiguous thing, that you felt like when you looked out the window you saw the thing you were in, because I feel like there's a lot of little cues that make people have that feeling, which is when they see that the sun is in the sky at a certain spot, and when they see it through the window, and then they notice that the angle of the shadows in the sun and the interior is the same, that connection would be really difficult to do with a tiny model, because we'd have to do some kind of calculation between the tiny sun that is moving around the tiny model and the real giant sun that is moving around the interior spaces. And one of those things that fell out of it was that station is actually as big as a real space station, and that is a funny thing to do with your time.
Glitch text was initially a way for us to make our text more approachable. We wanted to have the appearance of a full page of information, but not make you have to literally read the entire page, and retain everything. So we were like, what's a good way for us to give you basically islands of ideas to grab onto so that you don't have to process an entire page.
But also, like Carla was saying, we had this problem conceptually, which is like, if you open, for instance, a web page in an AR desktop in our fiction, why isn't it just the entire thing that you can read? We didn't want to have to put all of that in front of the player, and so being able to say, like, a lot of what our games are about is only having access to little bits and pieces of information, and then you have to fill in the gaps as to what the entire meaning is. And so glitch text for us is hopefully the text version of saying, well, I only have like this sentence and this sentence and this paragraph and this little snippet, but I'm involved in interpreting this as the player by saying, oh, and here's what must have been between them, or what the whole message is, without just you read all the way through it and There it is. So Tacoma is a sci-fi game. Obviously, it takes place on a space station in the future, but also it's very much a story about the lives of these people, these individuals who live here, and kind of about their everyday experience as well as the drama of the crisis that they're living through. And so, the sci-fi stuff that we looked at that was really an influence on us had, at least in part, a strong focus on that kind of relatable experience of the people who are in these fictional worlds.
Yeah, there have been some really solid scenes that we could still draw from, especially in things like Alien. They have the waking up sequence, the dinner table sequence where everyone's talking and, coming from their different walks of life and relating to each other. And if we just cut it before John Hurt explodes, then everything is appropriate.
Yeah.
Then we have like Moon, which has long sequences of how a person could actually live their life.
And those were the kinds of things that we wanted to be able to talk about, was what are these people's lives like in a day-to-day way, so that you can kind of picture what it would be like to be here, or what it would be like to be in their situation, and kind of identify with that.
Totally.
Steve and Carla are really inspired by that scene around the dinner table in Alien. So I was thinking a lot about that scene, and I was like, well, how can we have our own little gathering table like that? And I drew a normal, like, rectangular table at first, and I was like, that's boring. So I put the little, like, weird tilted end on it. And Kate liked it, so she took it and, like, made it into a real table, which is what you can see in the game now. And I was always kind of excited about that. I was like, I designed a weird table.
So the whole main scene in the dining room centers on this making and unveiling of Odin's cake, which he sort of neural networked together into something that he thinks that humans would kind of like to eat for this weird party he's throwing. So that's the cake in the game. It doesn't actually exist. It's just sort of implied sheet cake. But Sarah, for our lunch party, so you were responsible for actually making, like, reproducing the cake in real life, right?
Yes. I almost feel like I think in my head that it was going to be a lot funnier than it actually was. Like, I was very concerned about the look that I was going to get from a baker when I go in and say, hi, I need like a basic sheet cake in gray, and then with very specific red icing. But, yeah, she ended up being fantastic. I think we agreed right away that it needed to be some very clear store-bought sheet cake style. Nothing super fancy, because again, you're supposed to be reproducing something that was made in the game.
Yeah.
She's like, got it. This is going to be great. Now, how big do you want it? And I feel like that was the biggest decision, was because the bigger it is, the more of a fun statement it makes as that reproduction cake. Yeah. Luckily, it turned out to be pretty delicious, and I think everyone enjoyed digging in.
Yeah, it was good. I loved it.
So here we are in the lounge, my favorite place in the game.
Yeah, mine too, I think.
I can't put my finger on that. Part of it is the pillows?
Yeah. Oh, so those pillows were kind of a nightmare to make, and the less I could see them at the end of the game, the better. Just because when I made those pillows, they weren't like sculpted or anything like that. I was using this program, which is like this is basically a sewing program, in that it allows you to make patterns in cloth simulation. So that you would, make like a pattern, like a traditional sewing pattern, and then it allows you to stitch it together. And if you have something like these pillows, it allows you to use a pressure slider, and it'll sort of inflate the thing you've stitched together. Except the problem is that I kept on just gently inflating them, and they kept like floating into the void, to the point where like every time that I tried to make these pillows, I would just lose them. They would just float away. So by the time that I was done making what should be a fairly simple model, because I was learning new software at the same time, I was like, I'm done with these pillows. And then someone put them on the lounge floor, so I had to see them every time I came in here, not just in the bedrooms. Do you want to talk about the pool table?
Oh, yeah.
Sigh.
Pool table. Yeah, well, no, I mean, I actually had a lot of fun making the pool table, which both of us worked on.
Yeah.
Quite a bit, because it is strange.
It's a fussy little beast.
The main reason it's fussy is this is actually just a physical pool table, and it works pretty similarly to a real pool table. When the pool balls go in the pockets, they actually have to fall on a ramp, and then that ramp rolls the ball and, drops it down into the ball return or to the cue return. A little ramp with a little tube, just like a real pool table. Which, if you're trying to make something deeply interactive and have the players engage or not engage with it, but at least it feels like it should, which is hopefully the bar you're trying to hit, is the player feels like that's legitimate. Like, I'm in a place and the pool table works as I would expect it to.
Yeah.
Oh, the darts.
The darts.
This dartboard had potentially more bugs than anything else in the video. I was still fixing bugs, the last night before release on this. It's just, there's so many states and so many confusing, unique features about this, with the, being able to put the darts back in the door, and then the door can move, and the door can be open or closed, and it can close on a dart that's stuck in the board.
We could have just made it so that it wasn't a cabinet, so that the darts were just stored underneath in a little rack or something, and then that would have solved so many problems for you.
Oh, don't say it now. Yeah, yes, we should have.
I did learn to make some custom shaders for Tacoma. So the character's look has changed a lot since we first started working on Tacoma. The story also changed a little bit. And originally there was a character that was supposed to look glitched and corrupt compared to the main characters. And when I made that character, I worked with vertex distortion, and so they look kind of wiggly as they're moving around. And it turned out that Steve and Carla really liked that look, and so we implemented that into all the other characters' shaders. So anyway, so that's why they kind of have like a distorted look as they're walking around. And from there, a bunch of other things were added, like when they walk through another mesh or touch another mesh. Like if they're touching the table, their fingers will kind of glow. and if they're walking through a door, their bodies will kind of glow as they're walking through the door mesh. So, yeah, good old shaders.
We have a station cat.
Well, look, a cat.
Oh, hi. This cat, who belongs to Evie, is named Margaret Catwood.
That's right. Which, you can find one of these cats in each of the main AR scenes. So the cat didn't have a name for a long time, and our rationale for that was that when you see the characters' name tags in AR, it's because the company is officially tracking them and has that information in their crew profile. And we knew that, you know, Venturis would want to know if there were creatures on the station, like a cat. So it would be tracked in the system, but, like, Venturis doesn't care what the cat's name is. It doesn't have, like, a crew file about their cat. But then near the end of development, we put in a thing that
Right.
Nat had put in a list of what everybody was doing. We included the cat in that, and so...
Because Nat.
Right, because Nat's, like, she's a goof. And at that point, it's like, all right, well... she's going to put in the cat. She's not going to just refer to it as, like, the cat. So I just went into our Slack channel, and I was like, so what's the cat's name? And I think, like, 3 seconds later, Carla replied with just, Margaret Catwood. And I was like, done.
I think that had been in the back of my head. I actually considered naming my cat that at one point, and then I was like, no, it's perfect for this.
That's very
for this.
good. But yeah, it seemed like an appropriately silly name for the station cat. We were really glad that we did commit to recording all of the main scenes ensemble style
Definitely.
in person, because something that's really common in video game voice recording and in, like, animation voice recording is that you have each individual actor come in, sit in a booth, record their lines on their own, and then it all gets edited together after the fact. And we felt like, because every scene in Tacoma is about these characters being face-to-face in these very intimate scenes, like, the game is about being in the room with these characters while these moments are happening, the quality of the performance completely relied on the actors being there and being able to play off of each other's energy and be in physical proximity while these things were happening, so it would come across in the game.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the whole game is conversational, and at least the scenes, and yeah, just having the actors physically present and able to talk to each other and look each other in the eye just added, like, immeasurably to the quality of the recording.
It was also really cool to see how excited the actors were to be able to perform their parts together in person on stage, because it's just an opportunity that I think in a lot of games and animation you just don't have the chance to be involved with, and so, you know, we really want to thank our voice coordinator, Michael Surix, who arranged all of the logistics of like getting a soundstage together and getting everybody in the same place at the same time, which is not easy.
All the way down to coming up with a scheme for taping the mics to the actors' foreheads so that they would get the least amount of interference from clothing and like skin movement as their faces moved while they spoke.
I mean, that's one of the big challenges, is that, you know, if you're recording a scene like this for the screen, you can have a boom mic that's just picking up everybody's lines. But with Tacoma, each character's voice has to follow their individual character model as they move around the space. And if I'm standing between Andrew and Sarah while they're talking, I have to hear Andrew out of my left ear and Sarah out of my right ear. So that means that Mike had to get over all of the logistical challenges of, we need to have people that are face to face, you know, like inches away from each other, but also each of them needs to have only their own voice picked up and recorded and isolated separately so that they can follow the characters around in the game. So it was a big technical challenge and a really cool experience to get to see the scenes that we had written and practiced and kind of just done as amateurs in our studio being performed by these incredibly talented people there in front of us on a soundstage. It was really cool.